With Monchi leaving after a difficult summer, followed by them kicking off a season without a win in their opening 5 matches, scoring just 1 goal, Aston Villa supporters could have been forgiven for thinking they would be in for a difficult year. Instead, months later they found themselves in a title race. Outsiders in that title race perhaps, but in it all the same. A poor run of form in the new year saw that title challenge fade away, yet they remain favourites for a spot in the Champions League, despite having to wrestle with financial constraints that their immediate competition don't, and have gone deep in the Europa League, which could see them end the season with their first trophy in decades. Recent months have shown Villa to be far from perfect. However, Unai Emery has put together a side that often looks more balanced and better organised than the more expensively assembled teams around them. Like most top teams, Villa look to play out from the back. To do this in the deepest areas of the pitch, they will typically have the centre-backs split wide to the edges of the box, while the 2 midfielders drop in and the full-backs move out towards the touchlines. Including the goalkeeper, that's 7 players brought back into Villa's third of the pitch. With so many players brought back into this area, as well as how they're positioned, it makes it very difficult for the opposition to stop them playing out. With the midfielders' position narrow and the centre-back splitting wide, the opposition forwards can't cover both. They can stay central, blocking the passes into the midfielders, however this leaves the centre-backs free to play out. They can step up to pick up the centre-backs, but that would leave the midfielders free unless the opposition midfielders step up in support. They could have wingers step up onto the centre-backs, but this would leave the full-backs free instead. By bringing so many players back into this area, Villa make it so that the opposition need to commit a lot of men forward in order to cover all those players. If they don't, then Villa can easily find at least one of those 7 men free and he can pass out. Because of this, opposition teams can sometimes be wary of engaging, and so it isn't unusual to see a Villa player put their foot on the ball and stand still, essentially refusing to continue playing until the opposition agree to press, opening themselves up. If the opposition do commit men forward to press though, then Villa will often look to simply play over the top of this pressure. The more men pull forward, the less remain to protect the defence, and so a long ball to Ollie Watkins can be nodded down for the attacking midfielders to run straight at an exposed defence. Nevertheless, outnumbering the opposition doesn't guarantee Villa success playing out. Some sides have been able to stop Villa by allowing them to play in one direction and cutting off the passes back in the opposite direction, trapping them against the touchline. With Villa unable to realistically pass to those players on the opposite flank, they don't need covering, and so the opposition don't need to commit nearly as many men forward, making it less risky. When trying to play out through the middle third, Villa take on a different shape though. They will still look to outnumber the opposition forwards in their first line. If the opposition use only one forward, it's common for them to just use the centre-backs for example. However, for the most part they will form a back 3 to play out. When Lamare Bogarde plays in midfield, it's generally him that drops back next to the centre-backs to form a back 3, but for most games it's Matty Cash that will instead hold back on the right. This sees Villa outnumber the opposition forwards, which makes it easier to open up space for one of them to play out. It's not difficult to play to one side, draw the opposition across, then switch out to the 3 man on the other side and play out. The 2 midfielders ahead of the back 3 also help with this. They provide the same function as they do in the deeper build-up. If left free they can receive the ball and pass out, however if the opposition forwards stick to them, then they at least act as decoys, drawing attention away from the defenders to give them more space. They might not be able to get on the ball themselves, but by keeping the opposition central, they open up lots of space down the outside for their teammates to make use of, whether that be picking out a pass or pushing forward on the ball. Those midfielders can also act as decoys to their teammates ahead of them too. If opposition midfielders are drawn forward to close down Villa's, then that opens up space behind them for the attacking midfielders to pick up the ball. It's very common for Villa to use a box midfield. They will have the 2 midfielders at the base, and then the left midfielder will tuck in to join the attacking midfielder between the lines. As Cash holds back in defence to help with build-up, the right midfielder will typically stay wide to provide width, yet he will sometimes also tuck in to join them too. The result is that Villa have 4 or 5 players in the centre, giving them plenty of passing options, and so it's not too difficult for them to progress the ball. They can use the back 3 to find a passing angle, feed the ball into midfield, and then the midfielders can quickly exchange passes to play around the opposition and get it forward. By having the attacking midfielders come narrow, Villa are able to ensure a link between their midfield and attack. It's not unusual to see Morgan Rogers in particular drop back to help his teammates play out, bouncing the ball into a teammate who may have otherwise been blocked off. If he was alone between the lines, then he would have helped his teammate get on the ball, but then left him with no pass forward. Yet Villa having multiple players in this area means that even if one drops back, there's another still in position ahead of them. We discussed this use of bounce passes in our video on Liverpool last summer, and Villa provide plenty of examples of how useful they can be. Rather than a player having to worry about both finding an angle to receive a ball and then turning out and passing forward, one can position himself to receive a ball and bounce it on, while the other only has to worry about the forward pass. It just strips back a lot of what is required for a player to advance the ball, which can be really useful if the opposition are proving difficult to break through. Even further ahead, Watkins is willing to drop off the front line and lay off the ball to a teammate, helping to progress the ball from back to front quickly. Although Villa are obviously set up well to progress the ball, with plenty of players looking to combine, this doesn't mean that they always have success. Not all of those players are equal in their skill sets, so how well Villa do passing out can vary a lot based on personnel. Right from the back, Emiliano Martinez provides a good example of this mix of ability. He can find teammates with his passes and generally looks unflustered under pressure, however when forced into rushing he can get sloppy, giving the ball away with inaccurate passes. He can reach for forwards with his long passing, but he's unlikely to be setting up attacks with them. Martinez is basically a good solid player with the ball at his feet, but he's not one of the best. The best of the centre-backs in possession is probably Pau Torres. He has the accuracy to pick out a long pass along the ground into the feet of the attackers. These passes allow Villa to go from back to front quickly, but in a way that makes it easy for the attackers to control the ball. He also has the vision to slip a pass into a free man in midfield, or to give a fullback something to run onto. Torres is also calm under pressure, often shaping as if to pass, before then cutting across himself into space, winning time on the ball. Due to the centre-back splitting wide in the deepest build-up, and the left-sided centre-back getting pushed wider when they form a back three, Torres often finds himself in space out on the left. When given this space, he is unafraid to push forward with the ball. He prefers to pass the ball on than attempt to take on players, but if he isn't confronted, he is happy to continue pushing deep into the opposition half, progressing the ball by himself. Ezri Konsa is another excellent ball player. He too can find the attackers with a pass into feet, and he can slip the ball into midfield, but he can also give his teammates something to run onto, weighted well. Where he really impresses though is his comfort under pressure. When one of those passes isn't on, rather than simply getting rid, Konsa will hold on to it, even with an opponent right on top of him, twisting and turning to get away from them. He will hold off a pressing attacker, putting his body between man and ball until a pass opens up for him, and only then will he move the ball on. If given the space to push into, he will do so, showing a greater willingness to take men on than Torres, but this isn't necessarily a good thing, sometimes losing the ball when he does. Tyrone Mings is also capable of picking out passes and happy to push deep into the opposition half with the ball. Likewise, Victor Lindelof will sprint forward with the ball if given the space to do so, and can find a teammate in midfield. Although both more than competent in possession, Mings and Lindelof are a step down from Torres and Konsa though, a little more basic and sometimes sloppier with the ball. Villa have a similar mix of players in midfield. Despite his lanky frame, Amadou Onana is good at turning out in small spaces with good close control, keeping the ball close to him. He's also confident enough to slide passes to the advanced midfielders through the middle. That being said, his passing can be hit and miss. It's not unusual to see him pass behind a teammate for example, or to play one that is slightly too weak, inviting pressure. He may also turn into trouble or run with the ball into trouble, losing it in the process. Even when he doesn't lose the ball, he can sometimes simply be slow to release it, missing opportunities to get Villa on the attack. Onana is a good player in possession, but not a great one. Boubacar Kamara has excellent close control, protecting the ball well, yet also capable of drawing in opponents before shifting his body to scuttle away from them. He is quick too, so if he manages to escape his man or find some space to stride into, he can quickly get Villa on the attack by carrying the ball forward himself. His passing is generally quite basic though, usually playing short simple passes. He might show more of a range to pass out to the flanks, yet it's rare to see him really try and thread a pass. Aside from his dribbling, his main benefit in progressing the ball is just knitting play together, such as by playing a 1-2 to advance. Lamare Bogarde is another who has the talent to turn out under pressure and carry the ball forward, but his passing is also generally quite basic. With Kamara's season cut short by a serious knee injury in January, former player Douglas Luiz was brought back on loan from Juventus. Luiz can carry the ball forward when given space and can join the attack with runs from deep, however he is generally very slow to release the ball. If given time to do so, he can pick out a pass, yet him taking so long in possession can really slow Villa's play. Most of Villa's deep midfielders aren't bad on the ball, yet you can really see the gap in quality when you compare them to Youri Tielemans. The Belgian not only has a far superior range of passing, able to not only pass through the midfield, yet also play long passes in behind for the forwards, or slip a through ball between defenders, but he also does it so much quicker than his teammates. Whereas the other deep midfielders seem to take a touch and then figure out their options, Tielemans gives you the impression that he already knows what he's going to do with the ball before he receives it, moving it on immediately. This enables Villa to get on the attack much quicker, catching out the opposition before they can settle. Villa look a very different team when Tielemans isn't playing, so him missing a large chunk of the season through injury hasn't been ideal. Emery has attempted to come up with an alternative in recent months however, trying out Barkley, typically an attacking midfielder, in a deeper role. The Scouser has the close control to be able to turn out under pressure and drive forward with a ball, and he has the ability to pick out more ambitious passes than most of his teammates. Villa do have some real quality to help them play out, but the way they set up does help them to get around the limitations of certain players, giving them lots of short passing options to move the ball simply and quickly. If Villa are finding it difficult to play through the opposition however, they are unafraid to go back to square one, playing it back to the goalkeeper. They return to that initial build-up shape, with the centre-backs splitting wide and the midfielders dropping in between them. Although it means giving up territory, this encourages the opposition to step up and press Villa, ideally opening themselves up rather than keeping closed up in midfield. Although Villa are very good at playing out from the back, they aren't perfect. They are likely to find a free man and pass out, yet it's not unheard of for them to give the ball away in dangerous positions around their own box. This has directly led to goals for the opposition, and most frequently it's occurred against the teams Villa are in direct competition with for a spot in the Champions League. There are few better ways of demonstrating the risks of this playing style than handing easy points to your rivals. The purpose of playing out like this though is to feed the ball to the attacking midfielders between the lines. With several players in these positions, it makes it likelier that Villa can sneak the ball through to one of them. Ideally, it would probably go to Morgan Rogers. Despite standing at 6'3", Rogers has incredibly good close control. This is in large part because he's comfortable using both feet and so can shift the ball from side to side, picking whichever allows him to shield the ball better or move away from oncoming opponents. This means even when he can't find space, he can at least protect the ball and hold on to possession for Villa, which is aided by his physical strength as well as his technique. His ability to keep the ball so close to his feet means he doesn't need a lot of space though, as it's not unusual to see him wriggle through tight gaps, drawing in opponents before cutting in a different direction to escape. Rogers is also clever in creating space for himself, shaping as if to go one way, then taking a touch in the opposite direction. He also provides a significant goal threat. He can get a shot away without needing to get the ball out of his feet, using a sort of scooping technique where he strikes straight through the ball but with the side of his foot. If there's one element to Rogers' game that's lacking though, it's his passing. He's capable of threading a through ball, however these tend to be rarities. It's not unusual to see him misjudge the weight of a pass or have it cut out by a defender. Even simpler passes go awry. You can often see him do the hard part of dribbling past players, only to mess up the easy bit of offloading it. Despite being told he could leave in the summer, Emiliano Buendia has reclaimed a starting spot tucking in off the left this season. The Argentinian is another good dribbler, keeping the ball close to him in tight spaces and taking longer strides once he has space to run into. Often receiving the ball on the half turn allows him to push forward with it quickly, getting Villa up into attack. He can be a bit lightweight on the ball though, getting knocked off of it. His passing can also be found lacking at times. He's less likely to give it away than Rogers, but that is in large part because he's less ambitious with them. He can pull off a nice through ball, but he's much likelier to pick the simple pass wide than attempt one. Far more often you'll see him try his luck with a shot instead. Comfortable using both feet and with a variety of different types of finishes, Buendia is capable of some spectacular goals. In contrast to his passing, he can sometimes be a little over-ambitious though, attempting all kinds of mad volleys. Shooting first time like this does allow him to get shots away quickly, before opponents can stop him or react. However, taking a touch may often make them likelier to hit the target. He's also unusually good in the air for a short man. Primarily playing off the right was John McGinn. The Scot is a favourite among Villa supporters and generally underrated outside of them. A little terrier of a player, he provides hard work and ball winning in midfield, with a willingness to get in close and put in a tackle. However, he doesn't get the credit he deserves for his technical ability. His low centre of gravity allows him to protect the ball well, allowing him to draw in then turn away from opponents despite not being the most agile of players. As he isn't very quick, he can't really run with the ball, yet he can make the ball do the work for him because he's a good passer, showing an excellent range when given a bit of space to pick them out. McGinn is also yet another Villa player with a good shot in him, usually trying to pick out the corners with a low finish. These midfielders aren't the only ones who have a mean shot, and a large chunk of Villa's goals early in the season came from long shots. Much was made of how they were exceeding their expected goal statistics, yet dismissing the success as mere luck ignores several factors. For one, Villa have a host of players who are genuinely good at shooting, so these long shots are likely to result in a goal. Rogers having a go is a lot different than a centre-back who gets a nosebleed when he crosses the halfway line. Secondly, Villa actively attempt to get these players in goal-scoring positions. Rather than having the wingers hug the touchline, they are brought inside, closer to goal, and having several players in these positions makes it likelier that Villa will find them, giving them more shooting opportunities. A chance in the 6-yard box is always likelier to go in than one from outside the penalty area. However, with their shooting quality, Villa's long shots also have a higher probability of hitting the net than a statistical model might dictate.
It's like a crime. It's a crime. It feels like a crime way of scoring, XG kind of putting you down, but if you actually look at the chance and the shots we're hitting, they're good options to take. We're not taking pot luck shots. I think they're well within our right to take, and every team would have taken that shot.
This approach has its downsides though. Bringing the attackers inside puts them closer to goal and makes it easier for them to combine with one another, yet it also allows the opposition defence to stay narrow, limiting the space and making it easier for the defenders to cover each other. The passing of the attacking midfielders has rarely been great, however it also can't be easy to thread a through ball when there's barely a gap between the defenders. It's perhaps little surprise why they consider shooting from distance to be the better option. Instead, Villa's width is usually provided by the fullbacks. Digne started the season on the left. He's a good crosser of the ball, regularly whipping the ball into dangerous areas. He can also push forward to help stretch play. In order to advance with the ball, he will often play a 1-2 with a teammate, allowing him to get past his man without having to dribble. At 32 years old, it's not realistic to be asking him to be bombing up and down the flank for 90 minutes though, and so he will often hold back in a deeper position on the flank rather than really stretching play. As the season's gone on, Maatsen has gradually replaced him at left back. The Dutchman is younger and quicker, and so has the energy to get up and down the pitch much easier than Digne. This means Maatsen pushes forward and hits the byline much more, getting down the outside of the opposition defence and often drilling low crosses across the face of goal. Quicker, he is also much more comfortable taking on opponents. This allows him to carry the ball forward into attacking positions, and it can be useful playing out from the back too, drawing opposition pressure and breaking through it. It's not unusual for him to run himself into a corner though, holding onto the ball and getting surrounded rather than using his dribbling to create space for himself. In addition to this, his crossing generally isn't great, so while he can get forward and stretch play, it's often not actually all that useful for Villa. On the opposite flank, Matty Cash has the skill set to succeed overlapping. He has the dynamism to burst forward and stretch play, providing width for Villa, yet he also has the crossing ability to make real use of this position, whipping crosses around defenders to supply his teammates. The problem for Villa is that while Cash is well suited to get forward down the right, he doesn't do so as much as he ideally should. It's not unusual to see him stay back in a deeper position rather than pushing forward to stretch play. This isn't Cash's fault though. He's the fullback usually tasked with staying back alongside the centre-backs to form a back three to play out, so he can't readily be expected to provide width in attack too. He can't be in two places at once, and asking him to move between those two positions quickly and repeatedly is unsustainable over 90 minutes. Instead, it's often left to the right winger to provide width rather than tucking inside like the left-sided one does. Early on in the season, this spot often went to Evann Guessand. The Ivorian is a good dribbler, able to jink his way past his fullback, however he offered little else. Even that is significantly more than what Leon Bailey brings to the table though. The Jamaican often picks up the ball and runs at his fullback, yet it's rare to ever see him beat them. It's much more common to see him run himself into trouble and lose the ball. Jadon Sancho is an upgrade on both. He has the tricky dribbling to operate in tight spaces or beat a man, but he also helps to link play, knitting together attacks in the final third. This means Sancho is another attacking midfielder who prefers to tuck inside rather than hug the touchline. He doesn't really have the athleticism to be that flying winger exploding into space. He's much better when he has other players to link up with. Of all the options Villa have on the right, McGinn is probably the best for providing actual width, and that's only because his crossing is good. He's another that is at his best when he comes into the middle too. This lack of width is probably Villa's greatest issue going forward. As the opposition defence doesn't get stretched, the defenders can remain central and compact, leaving little space for the Villa attackers to exploit. This obviously creates an issue for Villa's striker, who often lacks both space and supply. This role is usually filled by Ollie Watkins. Watkins is very good but not that top level of striker. He's never managed that 20-goal tally that would put him among the league's best, yet he's hit double figures in every season at Villa, proving to be more than dependable. He's not the most naturally talented of forwards. He doesn't have the technical ability to beat a man or to really protect the ball and hold it up. He is a good finisher, but not one you would bet your house on if given half a chance. Nevertheless, despite his limitations, Watkins adds a lot to this Villa side. His willingness to make runs out to the flanks gives his teammates a deep option, allowing them to go long and move up the pitch, quickly going from back to front. This can also be seen when he makes runs in behind through the middle, often on the shoulder of a defender to test their line, and providing attacking depth. His selflessness is best seen in the way he looks to bring others into play though. Watkins will constantly make movements to receive the ball to feet, and then he will quickly lay it off to a teammate, and he will also attempt to do the same with aerial balls. This allows Villa to not only get the ball into attacking positions directly, but also allows the other attackers to receive the ball facing forward rather than having to turn. Watkins is a player that doesn't look like he was born a footballer, but one that through hard work has made the absolute most of his ability, benefiting himself and his teammates. That being said, this season he has appeared to lack confidence. There have been times where he will take an extra touch rather than getting a shot away, taking too long and giving opportunity to the defenders to stop him. Villa's narrow attack causes some issues going forward, but it does have its benefits defensively. Stuffing the centre to provide plenty of passing options means that if they lose the ball, there are a host of players on hand to immediately surround the opposition and reclaim it. Villa are able to successfully counter-press like this because of the way they set up in possession, meaning the players don't have to move very far to try to win back the ball. This focus on staying narrow can also be seen when they drop into their proper defensive shape though. Villa will typically form a narrow 4-4-2, pulling the wide men inside to bolster the middle, and having the forwards block the passes into midfield, making it harder for the opposition to play through them. This can also be seen when they defend deep. Villa will stay compact, squeezing the space to leave none for the opposition to play through. It makes sense that a team that looks to pull their attackers inside closer to goal would look to deny that same opportunity to the opposition. Instead, Villa look to guide the opposition wide. By pulling wide players inside, they leave more space on the flanks for the opposition to use, but this space is on a fundamental level less useful, as it's further away from goal. It's possible that you're unlikely to see a player score from a touchline. They have to bring the ball back inside first before realistically scoring, so Villa prioritise defending that central space. The opposition also become more predictable when pushed wide, as they have less options on where to go. An opponent can't exactly turn out and play in the opposite direction if he has his back to the touchline. Nevertheless, this defensive approach requires discipline. Villa can only stay tight and compact if they don't leave any gaps, so their players have to get back and take up those positions. Fortunately, Emery has a good group willing to work hard. Those attacking midfielders are expected to track back and muck in defensively, and they typically do so quickly, following opponents deep into their half if necessary to ensure the defence isn't left exposed. Even Watkins, the man tasked with leading the line, can often be seen rushing back to help out his teammates and defend. Nobody appears to believe themselves above the dirty work of defending, so Villa's defence is less likely to find themselves outnumbered. This willingness to put in hard running can also be seen when Villa step up to press, energetically chasing down opponents to win back the ball or force errors. Unlike when they drop off into a mid-block, Villa tend to take a more man-oriented approach to pressing rather than a zonal one. Their players will push up and get tight to opposition players, cutting off the short passing options to make it difficult for the opposition to play out. As a result, the man on the ball will often attempt a longer pass, which is harder to pull off, and so you'll often see Villa intercept it and regain possession. The weakness to this approach is that by following their opponents, Villa's players can be dragged away from their nominal positions, leaving space elsewhere to be exploited. This contrasts with their usual setup out of possession, with its focus on staying compact and controlling specific areas. That usual approach has its own quirks though. For example, when facing a back three, rather than having the forward shift from side to side, Villa will have a winger step out to the third centre-back. This sees them go 3 versus 3, stopping the first line from getting outnumbered. However, it also takes defensive width away from the midfield, opening up even more space on the flanks for the opposition. You can also sometimes see the inverse of this, the winger tracking an opponent all the way back into defence to form a back 5. This stops the opposition from doubling up on the Villa fullback and shows the willingness of the Villa wingers to work hard and help their teammates, but it again leaves space to the sides of the midfield for the opposition to exploit. How well the midfield deals with these kinds of situations can depend on the personnel. Onana, for instance, is able to cover large swaths of territory, getting across quickly to confront an opponent. He can use his physical presence to corner them and stop their escape, and his strength to shake them off the ball. It's his willingness to put a foot in that usually sees him come away with the ball though. His long legs allow him to make tackles from a greater range than many of his peers, so an opponent may think they have got away from him, only for their escape to be cut off. A loose touch will be immediately punished, and Onana can cover a great distance by going to ground. He doesn't just wildly jump into challenges though, often staying on top of his opponent before picking the right moment to step in. His ability to time and anticipate challenges, combined with his reach, also allows him to get to the ball first for interceptions. While Onana showcases an ability to tackle from range, Kamara is the opposite. He will usually try to get right on top of his opponent, practically standing on their toes to win back the ball. He shifts himself to put his body between man and ball, bumping them with his hip to protect it. His desire to step out to his opponents can be exploited though, drawn forward to chase, only to leave a gap behind him for another man to use. Douglas Luiz is another that likes to get in close to make a tackle, and it's rare to see him go to ground. This means that even if he misses his challenge, he can quickly recover and continue defending. The Brazilian reads the game well, quickly snapping to potential danger before it's arrived, and shepherding his opponents, putting his body between them and dangerous areas. Tielemans doesn't have nearly the same level of defensive ability. It's not through lack of effort, but Belgium works hard to get about and shows a willingness to throw himself into challenges. However, opponents are often able to simply shrug off these tackles, or just stride away as he chases them. Put simply, he's just a bit soft, and despite his effort, doesn't have the physicality to reliably win the midfield battle. Barkley has a greater physicality, although as a naturally more attacking player, he doesn't have the same defensive nous. He can win a tackle, but he's less likely to spot or track an opponent's run. Those midfielders that are best for Villa progressing the ball tend to be worse defensively, and the stronger defenders tend to be worse at playing out. This isn't a major issue, as one can be typically paired with the other, and it's not as if any of the players are truly terrible at defending or passing, but it does show some of Villa's limitations. The defence behind them can be a bit of a mixed bag too. Konsa is by far the best of the lot. Nice and light on his feet, the centre-back can step in and get a foot on the ball, whether that means winning a tackle or nipping in ahead of an opponent to intercept the ball. He reads the game well, adapting his approach according to the situation. He will step up and get tight to an opponent, not giving them space to turn, but also drop off to get to the ball first, ahead of a running behind. This ability to replay means he's usually in the right position to come across and cover for his teammates, or to spot and cut off a run, while his pace allows him to quickly race across when he's called into action. It's not exactly a surprise that when Villa's defence cut out a cross, Konsa is the one usually doing it. One of the most striking things about Konsa is just how clean a defender he is. He's no pushover, able to hold off players, yet he rarely uses his strength in his bid to win back the ball. He could get away with so much more, especially in the Premier League, and yet he doesn't take advantage of this, remaining a steadfastly honest player. His only real weakness is in the air. It's not unusual for him to be beaten in aerial duels, and even when he does get his head on the ball, he rarely seems to get proper contact with them, often knocking the ball down back into danger, rather than powering it away. This is an area where a willingness to be a bit dirtier would really help him. An opponent would find it harder to compete for the ball if he's giving them a shove in the small of their back to unbalance them as soon as they leave their feet. Torres is another centre-back willing to step up and be aggressive, not giving opponents the space to turn, and putting in a tackle or intercepting the ball if given the opportunity. He also knows when to drop off too, giving himself a big head start on any balls in behind. Nevertheless, Torres can at times be a bit soft. He might miss a challenge or allow an opponent to beat him, in large part because he often doesn't put his body between his opponent and the ball, failing to impede their advance. Like Konsa, he also isn't very convincing in the air. He just doesn't seem to compete well physically and rarely looks confident putting his head in. Mings is a much more physically imposing defender than the others. He's better in the air and happier to use his strength to push opponents around. He doesn't wholly rely on this physicality though, showing an ability to stand up and match an opponent when they run at him. His footwork can be awkward at times though, seeing him miss opportunities to kill an attack, letting an opponent get in behind. He may appear to have an opponent cornered, only to let them wriggle past him. Villa's use of their fullbacks displays to what extent they prioritise the centre. Villa will stay compact through the middle, but when the opposition pass wide, they usually don't shift across as a unit, instead having the fullback move out while the rest remain central. This means they continue to protect the centre, but it can leave the fullbacks isolated out wide. Teammates may shift across to help them out, but this is often in reaction to a situation arising, rather than a proactive move on their part. This approach makes it very important that Villa's fullbacks are comfortable defending one-on-one. Cash is the best of them. He has the speed to get out to the winger quickly, even stepping in to intercept the ball if the pass is loose. This agility allows him to stick with wingers as they dribble, and he is good positionally too, blocking the path inside without leaving space down the outside. One slight criticism is he often appears to be pushing away from a winger, focusing on defending the space behind, which can make it difficult for him to step in and put a foot in, giving the winger the space to get a cross away. This is nitpicking though, and this approach means it's rare to see him dribble past. That's not something you can say about Digne. The Frenchman doesn't move out to get anywhere near as close to the winger, but then he will charge into a challenge. He essentially gives the winger the time and space to control the ball and prepare themselves, then gives them the opportunity to just knock the ball past him. He fares better when he does get out early, able to put in a tackle before the winger can really take control of the ball. However, he looks slow to turn and often seems to leave space inside, so he often isn't all that hard to beat even when he's backing up. Maatsen is an improvement, his quick feet enabling him to adjust and stay with his man. This quickness also allows him to race back and recover, even if the opponent has a head start on him. His positioning in one-on-ones is also usually good, leaving little space inside or out, although standing close to the opponent he gives them little room for error, but does give them space to knock the ball into down the outside and see if they can catch up to it before him. There are also plenty of examples of Maatsen failing to recognise a running behind him, holding his position instead of dropping off to meet it. Even when the fullback is successful in their one-on-ones, the opposition can exploit this approach by doubling up on him. Several teams have drawn the Villa fullback out to the winger, while another man makes a run in behind to receive the ball in space. Keeping players central allows Villa to protect the goal, but allowing their fullbacks to be isolated like this enables the opposition to get the ball into dangerous areas. Behind the defence, Martinez is of the eccentric school of goalkeeping. The Argentinian is always keen to leave his line, whether that be to sweep up behind his defence, rush out to face a striker in a 1v1, or to claim a cross. He particularly excels at the latter, confidently plucking the ball out of the air even as he's barged about. He also has a long highlight reel of spectacular saves, throwing himself through the air to get a hand to the ball, as well as good reactions, making split-second stops or quick changes to avoid getting caught out. He can be a little iffy positionally at times though, standing too close to his near post so that he can't protect the other. He also has a tendency to parry the ball back into danger and doing the good work of his initial save by setting up an easy second. He's a highly effective goalkeeper, but not one that always does everything by the book. Villa have a collection of very good but not quite top level players, and yet Emery has them competing at the top end of the Premier League. The way the season has fizzled out will feel like a disappointment to many Villa supporters, yet it's nevertheless a step forward for them to be back in the Champions League again next season. If they end up winning in Istanbul, the last few months are likely to be forgotten anyway. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to support the channel. This will help show my work to more people and ensure that you see future videos. You can also help me out by sharing this video with people you think would like it. You can keep up with what I'm working on by following on social media, links are in the description, but most importantly by supporting Holding Midfield on Patreon. Without financial support, these videos will simply cease to exist, as they just require too much time and effort. So if you enjoy these videos and would like to see more of them, please consider helping me out financially, and in return you'll get access to exclusive content, as well as early access to those that appear on YouTube. Thanks for watching.